Sarah Bennett was going to be late, and in her line of work, late meant losing a six-figure contract. She sprinted down the marble corridor of the Novatech building, her portfolio tucked under one arm, her oversized coffee clutched precariously in the other hand. The meeting with their executive team was scheduled for 9 o'clock sharp, and it was already 8:57. Her firm, Bennett & Associates, had spent 3 months preparing this pitch for cloud infrastructure redesign, and as lead consultant, everything rode on her shoulders. The elevator doors ahead were closing. "Hold it, please," Sarah called out, breaking into a full run. A hand shot out to stop the doors just as they were about to seal shut. Sarah felt a rush of gratitude as she hurried forward, eyes on her phone to check the meeting room number 1 last time. She stepped into the elevator without looking up. That was her first mistake. Her second was not securing the lid on her extra-large caramel macchiato. Sarah collided with someone solid, muscular, and completely unprepared for impact. Her coffee exploded between them like a caffeinated bomb, the hot liquid splashing across both their chests. Her portfolio flew from her grip, papers scattering across the elevator floor. "Oh my God!" Sarah gasped, looking up at the person she'd just assaulted with coffee. Her stomach dropped. Adrian Cross stood before her, the notoriously private founder and CEO of Novatech, now wearing half her macchiato down the front of his crisp white shirt. Coffee dripped from his charcoal suit jacket onto the elevator floor. His dark hair, usually perfectly styled from what she'd seen in business magazines, had droplets of caramel-colored liquid clinging to the strands. Sarah looked down at herself. Her cream blouse was completely ruined, the fabric now transparent in places and clinging to her skin. Brown coffee stains spread across her gray pencil skirt. "I am so sorry," Sarah stammered, her face burning with humiliation. "I wasn't looking where I was going, and I just..." Adrian held up a hand, and Sarah fell silent, certain she was about to be banned from the building before her meeting even started. But when she dared to look at his face, she saw something unexpected. He was smiling. Not a polite corporate smile, but a genuine one that reached his eyes that were the most striking shade of blue she'd ever seen. "Well," he said, his voice deep and tinged with amusement, "that's one way to make an entrance. Are you hurt?" "Am I?" Sarah blinked in confusion. "You're the one I just attacked with boiling coffee. Are you okay?" "It wasn't quite boiling," Adrian said, pulling his soaked shirt away from his chest. "Though it was definitely hot enough to be memorable." Sarah wanted to disappear. To evaporate like the steam rising from their coffee-soaked clothes. "I'm supposed to have a meeting with your executive team in," she glanced at her phone, 2 minutes. "I look like a disaster." "You look like someone who had an unfortunate encounter with a coffee cup," Adrian said. He bent down and started gathering her scattered papers. "What's the meeting about?" "Cloud infrastructure redesign proposal," Sarah said automatically, kneeling to help him collect her materials. Their hands brushed as they both reached for the same document, and Sarah felt an unexpected jolt of electricity at the contact. Adrian glanced at the papers as he handed them to her. "You're Sarah Bennett. I've read your preliminary proposal. It's innovative." Sarah looked up in surprise. "You read my proposal?" "I thought the executive team handled vendor evaluations." "They do, usually. But this project interested me personally." He stood, offering her his hand to help her up. Sarah took it, feeling the warmth and strength in his grip. The elevator had been sitting on the ground floor this entire time, doors open. Adrian pressed the button for the 15th floor, then looked at Sarah thoughtfully. "You can't go into a meeting looking like that. Come with me first." "What?" "No, I can't just." "I'm the CEO," Adrian said with a slight smile. "I can delay a meeting in my own company. Besides, I need to change too, and it's partly my fault for stopping the elevator doors." Before Sarah could protest further, the elevator began ascending. She stood there, acutely aware of how ridiculous she must look, how her blouse clung to her skin, how coffee was still dripping from her hair onto her shoulders. Adrian seemed determined not to stare, keeping his eyes politely on the elevator numbers, but Sarah caught him glancing at her reflection in the polished doors. There was something in his expression, not judgment or annoyance, but curiosity, maybe even interest. "I really am sorry about your suit," Sarah said quietly. "It looks expensive." It was, Adrian admitted. "But I have others. And honestly, this is the most interesting thing that's happened to me in months." The elevator stopped on the executive floor, and Adrian led her through a reception area where his assistant looked up in shock at their bedraggled appearance. "Mr. Cross, what happened?" "Coffee-related incident, Janet. Can you please call down to the executive conference room and let them know the 9 o'clock will be delayed 30 minutes? And see if we can find Ms. Bennett here something to wear." "Of course, sir." Adrian's office was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, minimalist furniture that somehow managed to be both sleek and comfortable, and a private bathroom that was larger than Sarah's entire apartment's bedroom. "There's a shower in there if you need it," Adrian said, gesturing to the bathroom. "Janet will bring up some clothes. We keep spare professional attire for emergencies." "This definitely qualifies as an emergency," Sarah said, trying to lighten the mortifying situation. Adrian smiled again, and Sarah noticed how it transformed his usually serious face. In business publications, he always looked intense, almost severe. But when he smiled, he looked younger, more approachable. "I'll use the executive washroom down the hall," he said. "Take your time. The meeting will wait." After he left, Sarah stood alone in Adrian Cross's office, dripping coffee onto his probably priceless carpet, wondering how her morning had gone so spectacularly wrong. And yet, as she replayed the encounter in her mind, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. The way Adrian had looked at her, the warmth in his smile, the unexpected kindness, it was more than just professional courtesy. Sarah shook her head. She was being ridiculous. The man was a billionaire CEO, and she just drenched him in coffee. This was a disaster, not the beginning of some romantic story. Still, as she headed into the bathroom to clean up, she couldn't quite suppress the small flutter of hope in her chest. 30 minutes later, Sarah walked into the conference room wearing borrowed clothes that fit surprisingly well, a navy blouse and black slacks that Janet had miraculously procured. Her presentation went flawlessly. The executive team asked sharp questions, and Sarah answered each one with confidence, her earlier embarrassment transforming into professional energy. What she hadn't expected was Adrian sitting in the back of the room, now in a fresh suit, watching her intently. When the presentation ended, the executives thanked her warmly and promised a decision within the week. As Sarah packed her materials, Adrian approached. "That was impressive," he said quietly. "You turned a disaster morning into a triumph. Thank you for delaying the meeting. And for the clothes. Keep them. They suit you." He paused, seeming to weigh his words carefully. "Sarah, I know this is unconventional, but would you have dinner with me tonight? Not as CEO and consultant, just as two people who survived a coffee catastrophe together." Sarah's heart raced. Every professional instinct screamed that this was complicated, potentially problematic. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw genuine interest, vulnerability even. "Yes," she heard herself say. "I'd like that." That evening, Adrian picked her up in an understated car, not the flashy vehicle she'd expected. He took her to a small Italian restaurant tucked away in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place where celebrities went to avoid attention. "I come here when I want to feel normal," Adrian admitted as they settled into a corner booth. Being CEO of a tech company means everyone always wants something. It's exhausting. I can imagine. Though from the outside, it looks glamorous. From the outside, everything looks different than it really is. He studied her across the candlelight. Tell me something real about you, Sarah. Not the professional version. Sarah found herself opening up in ways she rarely did. She told him about growing up in a small town, about her father who'd worked 3 jobs to send her to college, about her fear that she'd never be quite good enough no matter how hard she worked. Adrian listened with complete attention, and when she finished, he reached across the table and took her hand. I grew up with everything, he said quietly, and I've spent my whole life trying to prove I earned it rather than inherited it. My father built Novatech, and everyone assumes I'm just riding his coattails. Every success gets attributed to his legacy. Every failure is proof I'm not worthy. That's not true, Sarah said softly. I've researched your company. You've tripled its value since taking over. You've innovated in ways your father never imagined. You researched me? Adrian smiled, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. Professional due diligence, Sarah said, but her breathless tone betrayed how his touch affected her. And now? Is this professional? No, Sarah whispered. This is something else entirely. Adrian paid the check and drove her home, but neither wanted the evening to end. They sat in his car outside her apartment building, talking until midnight about everything: dreams, fears, favorite books, embarrassing childhood stories. I should go, Sarah finally said, though she didn't move. You should, Adrian agreed, also not moving. The space between them felt charged. Adrian reached up, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face, his fingers lingering against her cheek. I haven't felt this connected to anyone in years, he murmured. Neither have I. When he kissed her, it was gentle at first, questioning. Sarah answered by threading her fingers through his hair, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, becoming more urgent as weeks of loneliness and walls around both their hearts began to crumble. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. This is complicated, Sarah said. Extremely, Adrian agreed. Your firm is consulting for my company. We should probably keep this private until that project concludes. Probably wise, Sarah said, though the idea of hiding what she felt already seemed impossible. Over the next month, they became experts at secrecy. Adrian would text her late at night, and she'd slip out to meet him at his penthouse. They'd spend hours talking, laughing, sharing intimate moments that felt stolen from reality. At his place, away from the world, they could just be Sarah and Adrian, 2 people falling in love. He'd cook dinner for her, surprisingly skilled in the kitchen. She'd beat him at chess, which delighted him. They'd fall asleep tangled together on his couch watching old movies, then wake before dawn so she could leave before anyone saw. I hate this, Adrian said one night, holding her close in his bed. Hiding you. Pretending at work that you're just another consultant when you're everything to me. Sarah's heart swelled. You're everything to me too. But my firm's reputation depends on objectivity. If people knew we were together while I'm working on your account. I know. But soon. Once the project is complete, we can be public. Sarah kissed him, pouring all her feelings into it. They made love slowly that night, savoring each touch, each whispered confession of feelings too deep to fully express. But secrets have a way of revealing themselves at the worst possible moments. The project was in its final phase when everything fell apart. Sarah was presenting progress updates to Novatech's board when Marcus Webb, a rival consultant who'd lost the bid to her firm, stood up with a smile that made her stomach turn. Before we continue, Marcus said, I think the board should know about Ms. Bennett's personal relationship with Mr. Cross. It raises questions about how this contract was actually awarded. The room went silent. Sarah felt her face drain of color as every eye turned to her. That's a serious accusation, one board member said. Mr. Cross? Adrian's jaw was tight. Ms. Bennett and I have developed a personal relationship, yes. But it began after her firm was awarded the contract. The selection was based entirely on merit. Convenient timing, Marcus said smoothly. I've heard they've been seen together multiple times. Late dinners, his penthouse. Makes one wonder if the selection process was as objective as claimed. This is inappropriate, Sarah said, finding her voice despite her shaking hands. My work speaks for itself. Every deliverable has exceeded expectations. The timeline and budget targets have been met. My personal life has nothing to do with professional performance. Doesn't it, though? Another board member looked troubled. The appearance of impropriety is sometimes as damaging as actual impropriety. This puts the company in a difficult position. The meeting devolved into chaos. Sarah gathered her materials with as much dignity as she could manage and left the room, Adrian calling after her. She made it to the elevator before he caught up. Sarah, wait. How did Marcus know? She asked, tears threatening. We were so careful. I don't know. But we'll handle this. Together. Together? Sarah laughed bitterly. Adrian, I just got humiliated in front of your entire board. My professional reputation is being torn apart because I fell in love with you. Then we go public properly. We show them this is real. And everyone will still think I slept my way to this contract. Every achievement will be questioned. Every future client will wonder if I earned their business or if there's some other reason. The elevator doors opened, and Sarah stepped in. I need some space, she said as the doors began to close. Please. Adrian stood in the hallway, looking more helpless than she'd ever seen him. That evening, Sarah's phone exploded with calls, from her firm's partners, from industry contacts, from friends wanting to know if the rumors were true. She ignored them all, sitting alone in her apartment, wondering how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. Rachel, her business partner, finally came over in person. Talk to me, Rachel said gently. Is it true? But Sarah couldn't look at him anymore. If she did, she'd crumble. I think you should go. Sarah. Please. Just go. Adrian stood there for a long moment, and Sarah could feel him fighting the urge to argue, to convince her they could make it work. But finally, he nodded. If you change your mind, he said quietly, I'll be waiting. No matter how long it takes. After he left, Sarah collapsed on her couch and let herself cry, for the love she was losing, for the life she'd imagined, for the impossibility of having everything she wanted. Sometimes love wasn't enough. Sometimes the world won. You and Adrian Cross? Sarah nodded miserably. I love him, Rachel. It started after we won the contract, I swear. Everything was legitimate. I believe you. But Sarah, this is bad. The optics are terrible. Other clients are already questioning whether they can trust our objectivity. I know. You need to decide what matters more, your career or this relationship. Because right now, you can't have both. After Rachel left, Sarah sat in the dark, Adrian's words echoing in her mind. We'll handle this together. But could they? Was love really enough to overcome this? The next morning, Sarah received an unexpected visitor at her office. Catherine Cross, Adrian's business partner and the woman who'd helped build Novatech from the ground up, walked in wearing an expression of polite concern. Ms. Bennett, I hope you have a moment to speak. Sarah gestured to a chair, her stomach knotting with anxiety. I'll be direct, Catherine said. Adrian is brilliant, but he can be impulsive when it comes to matters of the heart. This situation with you is causing significant problems for the company. I understand that. I never intended. I'm sure you didn't. But intention doesn't change outcome. Catherine's tone softened slightly. You seem like a capable woman. Talented, driven. But you must see that you and Adrian come from different worlds. He has responsibilities, expectations, a position that requires a certain type of partner. Sarah felt anger flash through her grief. A certain type? You mean someone from his social class? Someone with the right pedigree? I mean someone who understands the pressures, the scrutiny, the sacrifices required. Adrian will always have obligations to the company, to investors, to legacy. Can you honestly say you're prepared for that life? The words landed like arrows, each one finding a target in Sarah's deepest insecurities. All the doubts she'd been suppressing rushed to the surface. I'm offering you a way out, Catherine continued. Your firm completes the current contract. We provide an outstanding reference. You walk away with your reputation intact and your career trajectory unharmed. But you end the relationship with Adrian. You're asking me to choose between my career and the man I love. I'm asking you to be realistic. Do you really think this ends well? The whispers will never stop. Every success will be questioned. And eventually, Adrian will have to choose between you and the company his father built. Don't make him carry that burden. After Catherine left, Sarah sat at her desk, unable to focus on anything. That evening, when Adrian showed up at her apartment, she almost didn't let him in. Sarah, please. We need to talk about this. She opened the door, and Adrian immediately pulled her into his arms. For a moment, she let herself sink into his embrace, memorizing the feel of him, the scent of his cologne, the steady beat of his heart. Your business partner came to see me, Sarah said quietly, pulling back. She made some good points. Adrian's expression darkened. What did Catherine say? Sarah repeated the conversation, watching Adrian's face cycle through anger, frustration, and finally something that looked like doubt. Do you believe her? Adrian asked. That you're not suited for my world? I don't know what I believe anymore. Sarah's voice broke. But I know that I'm tired, Adrian. Tired of hiding, tired of being judged, tired of wondering if loving you means destroying everything I've worked for. So what are you saying? I'm saying maybe Catherine is right. Maybe we're from different worlds, and maybe trying to bridge that gap is hurting us both. Don't do this. Adrian's voice was raw. Don't let other people's opinions tear us apart. It's not just their opinions. It's reality. The board questions your judgment. My clients question my integrity. How do we build a future on that foundation? By fighting for it. By proving them wrong. Sarah looked at the man she loved, saw the pain in his eyes that mirrored her own. I'm so tired of fighting, Adrian. Maybe some loves aren't meant to survive in the real world. You don't mean that.